Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden, and this guy right over here, that's Tim. And this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. Today is going to be an episode you guys need to send out. Please let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're there, just hit the like button and subscribe, because we are going to dive into so much propaganda. We're going to need the propaganda blaster on this one, Dr. Producer, because the DOJ is in full-on political elect me mode. And we are going to dive in, because it turns out that 68,000 guns were illegally trafficked through unlicensed dealers. This is going to require every bit of humor, every bit of analysis, and of course, the top veneer of sarcasm. I hope you guys enjoy. And with that, Tim, 68,000 guns, man.
Yeah, they were
That's so many
illegally
guns.
trafficked through unlicensed dealers over 5 years. Oh my goodness, that's my Captain Kirk. Come on! Anyway, so 68,000 guns illegally trafficked.
Wow, that was a pull.
Trafficked through unlicensed gun dealers. This kind of sounds familiar to me. Wasn't the ATF talking about a new rule that basically if you're just a regular gun owner and you sell any of your firearms, you make even $1 in profit, you're now classified as a gun dealer dealing without a license and you're subject to criminal penalty?
Oh my goodness.
Wasn't that something that I could have swore that was the case? So here we are, illegally trafficked through unlicensed dealers. Translation, people selling their private property. Yeah. We need to do something about that. That's what they're saying here.
Oh, that's part of it, Tim. But we've got to dive in. There's so much data they threw at us here. Okay, let's
hear this.
And none of it is propaganda ridden. Okay. I promise.
I hate propaganda.
Except all of it. But anyway, let's get it. I'm telling you, that propaganda blaster needed to be deployed heavily here. So this is from the Washington, the AP. Listen to a few of these numbers they're releasing. More than 68,000 illegally trafficked firearms in the U.S. came through unlicensed dealers who aren't required to perform background checks over a 5-year period, according to new data released Thursday by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Now, that represents 54% of the illegally trafficked firearms in the U.S. between 2017 and 2021, Justice Department officials said. Now, Tim, wait for it, 368
So out of 68,000, there were 368. Yes. So what they're saying is basically of the 68,000, it was just people selling their private property.
Selling their private property.
They weren't being sold out of trunks of cars to gangbangers, except for 368 of the 68,000. So obviously we got to do something about people selling their private property. I mean, good grief. Yeah. I don't know what that ratio breaks down into percentage wise, but it's got to be pretty darn low.
No, I got you. So we're going to do 368 and we're going to divide that by
68,000. Yeah, what's that give us?
I got you. Turns out it's 0.005.
Oh, wow. Dang, dude. We got to do something about the 0.005. We can't live with statistics like this. We're all dying out here.
But there's an interesting caveat, Tim, because if someone were watching this episode, they'd say, man, Braden, Tim, you're being a little callous. I mean, that is 368 shooting cases out of 68,000 accused, trafficked, unlicensed dealers, which, again, it's very important. When they're releasing this data, they're saying unlicensed dealers are you watching this video selling a gun to somebody else. That's an unlicensed dealer now because they changed the rules on you. So that's what they're saying. And that represents 54% of the illegally trafficked firearms. Now, Tim, I can't help but notice that verbiage, illegally trafficked firearms, that the ATF is accusing. I keep bringing it up, but they literally shut down Project Thor, which was an ATF operation that was busting trafficking of firearms on an industrial scale through the United States into Mexico from 4 cartels. And the ATF gets rid of it. But if you sell one of your own guns, now you're an unlicensed dealer.
So to put this in perspective, you go to the gun store, you buy a Glock 19. And 2 months later, you decide, you know what? I really want something different. I want a single action, double action carry gun. I don't want a striker fired gun anymore. I'm going to carry appendix, whatever your reasons. Mm-hmm. And you go and sell that Glock. Well, you didn't plan on keeping it in the eyes of this particular regime. You bought that Glock to profit. You bought it to straw purchase it for whoever you wind up selling it to, family member, friend, whatever. That makes you an unlicensed gun dealer under the current ATF regime. And of the 68,000 illegally trafficked, I wonder if the author of this particular hit piece is just using creative journalism here, because 68,000 illegally trafficked, break that down for me. What does that really mean? right? What was illegally done here? 368 were used in shootings. So that which accounts again for 0.005 of the guns that were illegally trafficked. What was illegal about their trafficking? Can you elaborate? Was it Bob selling his Glock 19 he doesn't want to use anymore to his friend Joe? Or are we actually talking about illegally trafficking? Like there are dealers out there that are sending in straw purchasers to buy guns that they then sell directly to the gangs, which will more than likely wind up in a lot more than 368 shootings if that were the case. What's really going on here? It seems like some creative journalism to me.
This is coming from a report from the actual ATF and the DOJ. This is part of the propaganda that says Biden is doing the most unbelievable crime reduction strategies that have ever existed. That's part of this whole push. So it's funny that you mentioned what you just said, Tim, because trunks of cars and straw purchases make an appearance here. You wouldn't believe it, but they do. All right. So remember that number, 54%. 54% of those, well, that begs the question, there's 46% doing something else, right, Tim? So that's around 50-50, right? I mean, according to basic levels of math. The second highest share of firearm trafficking cases investigated by the ATF was straw purchases, where someone buys a gun for a person who can't get it legally themselves. So I'm waiting for the point where that's the criminal's fault, because what that is, if you guys are not familiar, and Tim, you can elaborate on this as well. Straw purchases are when someone walks in and lies to the dealer, passes a federal background check, and then gives the gun to somebody else. So I'm still waiting for the point where the illegally trafficked firearms are coming into play, because this is obviously circumventing every rule you have on the books, but you're going to focus on people who are selling their private property? Get out of here.
I know. Yeah, and they want to hold the gun dealers accountable for these straw purchasers. And again, I've talked about this in previous episodes. How do you get into the mind of somebody that's coming into a gun store? How do you know what their true intentions are? Now, if they do something that's obvious, like I'll take that gun, they submit the background check, then the person standing next to them hands a wad of cash and they hand it to well, that's clearly a straw purchase and they would be denied, right? And the reason gun dealers would deny such a transaction is because there's a good chance that the people doing it are undercover agents or confidential informants that are setting up a sting to try to bring said dealer down. So dealers will do this when they see it just to preserve their license, their livelihood, and the livelihood of those that they employ, right? So they have to do these measures. This is already the law, okay? Yep. So what you're saying now is we're going to punish dealers even more because what? We don't have a minority report, secret room somewhere. We have a couple of clairvoyants sitting in there going, oh, this is what they're really thinking. You don't have any visibility into somebody's true intention. So if a single person comes in, buys a gun, leaves the store, you don't follow them home, which you normally don't, and they give that gun to somebody else at their house. How are you supposed to know as a dealer? Well, it's a dealer's fault, though.
Well, it ties together, Tim, because all these things are connected, right? You're looking at this thing, which is hitting on the illicit dealer, right? Which, of course, they're reinventing terms and changing some terms around to make it fit their narrative. But think about what Maxwell Frost just introduced last week with the Preventing Illegal Resales Act, where it would directly penalize the gun dealers for straw purchasers' behavior. I mean, it's all tying together. Like, it's the exact same angle, right? But let me show you this, because this is where your head might start to explode just a little. I mean, it won't kill you. It won't be terminal, but it will hurt. So this is number 12. The report, again, DOJ report from the ATF, also shows that the recipients of trafficked firearms were people who had previously been convicted of a felony in almost 60% of cases in which investigators were able to identify the background of the recipient. So felons are going to straw purchasers and traffickers to get guns, which is circumventing gun law. Furthermore, trafficked firearms were used to commit additional crimes in almost 25% of the cases, Dettelbach said. That includes more than 260 murders and 220 attempted murders, according to the report.
Those are some pretty low numbers. What? You want to take everybody's guns away for a statistical zero?
But 60% are from felons, though.
Well, my views on that. If you are a former felon and you've served your time, you've paid back your debt to society, why aren't your rights restored? And if 60% of these are felons and it's winding up in 260, 220 attempted murders, and we don't know what the connection is between these 60% and these numbers, so they're not making that connection. They're making a connection or suggesting a connection that you're going to go immediately to the negative. But yeah, I mean, gosh, here we are. This statistic has to be even worse than the previous one in terms of percentages.
Correct.
So again, we're hand-wringing over statistical zeros, and not to, say that the 260-ish murders that took place to be callous to those families. But the reality is people are going to be violent. People are going to attack and assault each other and hurt each other, and the criminals are going to criminal. You can't take away the ill will of people through gun laws. You can't legislate morality. You can't do any of that.
No, you can't.
So these are some pretty low numbers for just all these guns freely flying around, in my opinion.
Well, again, think about what they're talking about here. All the numbers they've thrown at us. 68,000 illegally trafficked firearms through unlicensed dealers. And of that 60,000 or 68,000, 0.005% were used in the crimes they're trying to prevent. 0.005. Now, again, not minimizing the impact, but putting it in perspective. That's very important. Then they've come out and they've said, goodness gracious, let's see, 368 cases, as we mentioned. The actual impact, sorry, my notes are freaking out. There we go. All these straw purchases, 60% of them were felons. Well, 60% of the crimes that you're talking about are people circumventing federal gun law. They take everything else out of it. You're sitting there telling me that more gun control is going to solve everything when the existing gun laws that you have on the books are being circumvented by people. And I quote, listen to the rest of this. The data shows, therefore, that those who illegally traffic firearms, whether it's out of a trunk, at a gun show, or online, are responsible for the real violence in this nation, Dettelbach said.
All 200 of them.
In short, you can't illegally help to arm violent people and not be responsible for the violence that follows. Out of a trunk are stolen guns.
Yeah. And gun shows,
that's what we're talking
it's been
about.
legal to sell a gun at a gun show forever. Like, it's not illegal. There's nothing illegal about me selling a gun at a gun show. If you've ever been to a gun show, you'll see people walking around. Some of the best World War II and World War I bolt action rifles I've ever found for the most reasonable prices were people walking around at a gun show with the rifle slung in a wooden dowel rod down the barrel with a little flag on it, ask me for sale, this is the price, tap my shoulder or whatever. Right. So that is not illegal. And somebody selling that classic firearm at a gun show isn't that bolt action Enfield isn't going to wind up in a drive-by bayoneting or, a 2,000-yard volley fire criminal act. Right. It just isn't going to happen. But it's not illegal. But yet they're classifying people that legally transfer firearms, private property that's legally owned.
Yep.
They're now trying to classify them as criminals. And they're pushing this narrative hard.
Well, listen to this. They're absolutely pushing it hard. But this adds some perspective to this. Remember all the numbers that we've thrown through here, right to the end. Listen to what they said. The report found the average numbers of guns trafficked per case was 16. People who got them through unlicensed dealers bought 20 weapons on average, compared to 11 guns for straw buyers, according to the report. So, again, they started this report out by saying that it was these people who are unlawfully, illegally trafficking firearms. After they changed what the definition of a federal firearms licensee is, right? If you sell a single gun, you're now a dealer. Well, now you get to the end of the article and it's like, well, yeah, these people were doing 20 weapons on average compared to 11 for straw buyers. So are you not seeing the criminal element here? Like, this is not just you or me. This is literally criminals.
Yeah.
Come on. God.
But you know who's going to be held accountable? The other 99.9% of the American population. They're going to be.
Well, it's our fault.
It's you, gun owners, that are responsible for the crimes that others commit. It's just you. And the reason it's you is because you own guns, which makes you a bad person. That's the narrative here. They just want to demonize and vilify gun owners and say that we're just all highly irresponsible. We're not to be trusted with our rights. So, and if they think 260 is a high number, they ought to see how many people die in drunk driving accidents every year. But I don't hear the same people out there standing on street corners with stupid signs in their hands saying, we need to ban alcohol again, because that worked out so well the first time around. Anyway.
It brought us the NFA. I mean, that's where we got the NFA. That's a little gem.
Yeah, that's definitely in part due to prohibition and all that stuff. So anyway, all right, guys, comment down below. What do you think of this? What do you think of their numbers? And what do you think of the ATF reclassifying you as an illegal gun trafficker if you go out and sell a gun because you want to buy something else or you just want to sell a gun? As far as I know, that's still a legal right in the United States, at least today as of this recording. Thank you for watching Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.